it's Christine. As promised, I'm making a video to answer some questions that you guys had. I think I have like 5 or 6 kind of larger questions, so I'll get started. I'm just going to read them off my phone because that's how I answer all my questions pretty much. So, the first one I had was, how do you balance your relationships with your extremely busy schedule? I'm also very busy with theater, although mine is community, and although I communicate with my friends mostly over text, I find it hard to organize any time to see them in person. Even FaceTime is hard to find time for. I want to know how you, in particular, balance these things. Well, one of the things that makes it a little easier, although it's really sad, is that none of my friends live here. Okay, wait, that sounds really bad, like I don't have any friends. But most of my closest friends don't live here. Like if I think about my 5 closest friends, one's in New York, one's in Tucson, one's in Washington, D.C., one's in Boston. So, and my sister, who's like one of my best friends, is in Los Angeles. So I don't have time to see them anyways. My friends that are here, a lot of them are in theater, so they kind of get it. They get that sometimes we're not going to have time. What we tend to do is when we happen to not have shows at the same time, we really try to get in time to hang out with one another then, because we know that, there will be times when we won't be able to see each other for a while. So like I have January and February have been pretty relaxed for me. Still really busy, but I'm not doing any shows. I chose to not take any shows in January or February because in March, April, and May, I'm doing 3 shows at once. So my closest friends, I'm like, let's hang out, let's do things before that time comes, because they know that I'm going to be out of commission then. My friends that don't live here, we just try to catch up with each other when we can. So I'm always, texting my friends and saying, we haven't talked in a while. When can we set up like a Skype date or something? And sometimes I only get to do that like once a month, which is, I guess, kind of sad, but we're just really busy, and I tend to foster relationships that we don't need to be talking all the time in order to stay close. Some people are like that, like they need to be constantly talking to people, or some friendships are like that where if you don't talk, you're just going to totally like lose contact. My relationships tend to be with people who are not like that, because they know that that's not how life works most of the time. So I just do my best to find time to connect with them when I can. I often am driving a lot, so I talk to people on the phone while I'm driving on like Bluetooth, wireless, or handless, so that it's a little safer. But I do that a lot to catch up with people. What else do I do? I just don't get to see people very often because also I live in a really big city. I mean, this isn't New York City, but in terms of Minneapolis is super spread out, so one of my friends lives like 45 minutes away and is still in Minneapolis. So it's like, when am I going to have time to drive all the way out there? So again, it's kind of like, I'll see you when you have a show in my area, then we can hang out. So it kind of sucks, but I just do my best to connect with people in a meaningful way whenever I can, and just make sure that they know that like me being busy doesn't mean I don't care about you, and the people who really matter and really care for you are going to understand that, and they're going to, further a friendship even though you may not get to see each other all the time. Some people aren't going to get it. Some people are going to be like, oh, why don't you work a 9-to-5 job like me? Let's go out for drinks at 6. And you're like, I have shows at 6. Sorry. And if they don't understand that, if they can't comprehend how you may be busy at times when they are not busy, then it's going to fizzle out, and that's just going to be what it is. So, yeah, that's kind of my answer. That probably didn't help a lot, but that's how I do it. My next one was, I find one of my biggest obstacles as an actor is remaining focused and controlled, especially in roles with bigger personalities. To me, there's a fine line between being controlled and being boring. Do you have any tips? Remaining focused and controlled, especially in roles with bigger personalities. So maybe, I'm just trying to understand exactly what you're asking. I'm wondering if it's like feeling like you have a hold on a character, especially when they have a big personality. Because if they have a big personality, I don't know how they'd be boring, but I could see how maybe you may not feel like you can like understand some characters that are bigger personalities. I think a lot of this comes with practice, in terms of playing roles, doing monologues, studying text outside of your comfort zone. as hard as that is, because that sounds like, well, Christine, that's not a solution. How am I going to get better at that if I'm just trying to do the thing I'm not good at? But I think the more experience you have with more roles and finding yourself in different kinds of roles, the more successful you're going to be at understanding them, I guess. So it's kind of a long-term thing. Again, this is the second question where I'm like, this is a really bad answer. Oh well. But I think that it just does come with time. You can't force yourself to like connect to a character. What I like to do sometimes when I'm feeling like I don't understand a character is I like to think about why they make the choices they do and try to connect the things that I do understand. I may not understand them on the same level as them or in the same way, but you know, if someone is going to die for their child, you know, I don't have a child, I don't really want kids, can't comprehend this, but I can understand wanting to make sacrifices for someone I care about. So that's a kind of broader way to look at something I don't understand. That's what I try to do with characters that I don't understand, and it helps me make stronger connections to them so that I feel like on stage I can sink into the character a little better. I don't know if that totally didn't answer your question at all, and I'm sorry if it didn't, but I'm not really exactly sure what the question was, so I hope it helped though. Okay, next one. For headshots, does it really matter if they have the white border with my name? I normally just have it on my resume, which is attached to the back of it, but I recently went to an audition where almost everyone else had the white border. No one ever said anything about mine before, and my photographer has done a lot of headshots and didn't say anything. So I was wondering what your opinion is. I think it's important to have your name on your picture because you'd be shocked at how often they rip those two pieces of paper apart so they can put them next to each other, and then one gets lost, and then there's just your picture and no one knows who you are. So that's why I think it's important to have your name on it. Whether it has the white border, some people just literally have their name typed on the bottom. It kind of depends on the structure of the headshot, whether that's going to work or not, the one where it's just typed. I personally have a white border on mine. But here's the thing, when I take headshots for people, I often give them the headshot without making the format. Like, without making the white border. And I only make the white border if they say, hey, can you put my name on it? And then I do it. Because I don't know if they want that on there. So the photographer may not have done that, you know. But I think it is important to have your name somewhere, somehow on that picture. Because you don't want that situation to happen. You want them to know who you are. So, yes, name. White border, not exactly the most important part, but it's one way you can put your name on. Next question. Does it matter what classes you take in high school? Is it really important in college whether you already go in with a lot of knowledge about your major? For context, I'm planning on doing something music related in college. Hi, Tolly. Probably music education. She wanted to come say hi. Hi, Tall. Bye. And I'm debating whether to take a music theory course or an AP physics course, which is worth more credits and which I also love, but I don't really want a career in. Do you have any advice? Okay, so if you got distracted by my cat like I did, which you can literally see her little rat tail, what she's asking essentially, or what she or he or they are asking is it more worth it in high school to be taking the classes that are related to your major, or the ones that are going to get you more credits but are maybe not related to your major? So I think this is a multi-layered question, because I think there's not one path. I think there's not like, oh, you have to do this one thing. If you're going into music education, AP Music Theory could be hugely helpful for you. You're not going to get out of all your theory classes if you're taking music education with an AP Theory class, but you could maybe get out of Theory 1, or you could go into Theory 1 with like a lot more knowledge. If you've taken music theory before, you know that it's a beast. It is so much. So to have a base knowledge is really helpful, especially if you don't have any base knowledge yet. If you have no base knowledge yet of AP Music Theory, take it now so that you understand what's happening when you go into your college course, because your college course is going to kick your butt, and you'd rather go in with like some tools to kick back. So that's my thought on that specific thing. But in terms of, in a broader sense, I think it's a good idea to take some classes, if you can, that relate to your major, only to figure out, do I really want to do this? You may not have the answer by the time you finish, but you know, if you're taking an AP Psych class and you hate it, and you were planning on taking psychology in college, maybe not the best idea. But, and you also just get like a kind of a taste of what's to come. But you're right in that you get 4 years to study this later. You could get like a math course out of the way and that would be awesome. So you don't have to take that in college. So it is a trade-off. I think ideally you kind of mix both. You do some things related to your future major, because also it can be hard to get into some of these programs if you have no classes or experience in that thing, like in music education or theater. But I think it's also important to balance that with classes that are going to get some credits out of the way, because it just makes college a lot more pleasant. I got some great credits out of the way with AP classes that I'm so glad that I did. So I would say it's a balance. But at the end of the day, too, you can go to college for something you never even thought about in high school. You can get your master's in something you never thought about. And then you can go on to do your career having to do with nothing you did in college or high school. So it's kind of like these steps are important, but the paths are just so numerous that you could kind of be doing anything with college or with your life, and it could be totally unrelated to what you did in high school. So don't get too stressed out about, am I doing the right thing? Because there isn't really a right thing in this case at this point in your life. So, good question. I think that, no, I have two more. Okay. Do you have any advice for someone who loves theater but feels discouraged from it in every aspect of their lives, from parents, school, and work? I'm so sorry that you feel discouraged. I can completely relate, and I think a lot of actors can relate to feeling like there's no encouragement in our field. One of my biggest, criticisms of our industry, in the theater industry, is that everybody is so obsessed with telling everyone what they can't do. If you ask a lot of professional actors or teachers, should I do theater? They'll say, no, don't do it. Why would you do that? And I'm like, do you really think that, though? Do you really think that? I think it's just this feeling of, if it had to be hard for me, then it has to be hard for you too, which I hate that perspective, which is why I run this blog, because I'm like, no, why should it be hard for you too? Like, I didn't have anyone to ask these questions when I was in high school. I would have really liked someone to ask these questions in high school, so I can be that person. That's what I like to think. But a lot of people don't think that. A lot of parents are going to be very negative about this career because they don't understand how to make it work. They think it is a path to disaster no matter what. I always think, like, I wish I could meet some of these parents who are like, you're never going to be able to make it as an actor, because I'm like, I'm an actor. I own this house that I live in right now. I'm 26 years old. I do not have a side job. I am totally making it, living the dream. Can everybody live exactly the same life I do? Not necessarily, but I'm saying there are ways to make this work. I am living proof. I am not famous. I am not on Broadway. I am not making $1,900 a week on equity minimum on Broadway right now, and yet I make a living and I can sustain a living on what I do. So I'm just like, ugh, parents, just listen for a little bit before you jump to conclusions. And then you have school that's going, yeah, you probably shouldn't do theater because, if you haven't succeeded by now at 16, how could you succeed? Which I'm like, that's nonsense. What are you talking about? So I understand that from a lot of friends you get a lot of negativity. But this is where the lesson that I learned in college and in my own work and in high school and personal life and whatnot, is that I cannot live my life and wait for the approval of anybody else. I like when my parents approve of what I do, and thankfully I have parents that are super supportive of me, which I am so, so grateful for, but the only person that I am proving anything to is myself. The only person I am doing anything for is myself. Well, and my fiance and my family, but I'm not doing it to make them think I'm good enough. I'm not doing it because I think they think it's right or wrong. I'm doing it because I believe I can do it, and I'm going to make it work. So I think that a lot of it is changing your perspective onto, well, there's all this discouragement and negativity from everyone else, how am I going to do this, to, well, their opinion really doesn't matter at all, so it doesn't really matter. You can deflect that negativity, because what matters is whether you believe you can do it. Now, if you don't think you can do it because of all this negativity, well, then you need to have some soul searching and really think about, why am I doing this? Why do I believe I can't or can do this? whose opinions matter to me? Why do they matter to me? What are my dreams? What are my aspirations? Are those aspirations viable? Are they plausible? Can I really do that? I'm going to do some research. I mean, to take some soul searching to figure out, is this right for me? Not for anybody else, just for me, you know? If theater is what you want to do, I'm not telling you right now it is confetti and butterflies and it'll be so great all the time and anybody can do it and oh my gosh, it's so easy. I'm not saying any of those things. There's a lot of luck, there's a lot of risk, there's a lot of sacrifices, but that is the case with life in general. There is no life that you can live without those things. Those things always exist. So I'm not saying it's right for everybody. I'm not saying everybody jump in without thinking about it. That is not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying that that path is open to anybody who wishes to pursue it. And it's up to you to decide whether it's the right path for you, if it fits who you are as a person, and if you're willing to do the work. And then that's kind of it. And, you know, I also think about whenever people are like, nobody believes in me. Nobody thinks I can do it. I always want to respond with, well, I believe in you. And I know that sounds so silly because I'm just like some stranger on the internet. I get it. But I'm like, someone's in your corner. Someone's rooting for you. It may not feel like it's someone personal, but I want everyone to succeed in this. I was just thinking about this today, about how it makes me so happy when someone says, I took the leap and tried this because of you. Not because it makes me feel better, but just because I'm like, I'm so glad that I could be that little bit of encouragement that made you believe you could do it. Because it really has nothing to do with me. It has to do with you. And if I'm that little tiny push, great. Because then you can really believe in yourself. You know you can do it. So, I guess if that makes you feel better. I believe in you. But don't get down. You know, move forward. Try to deflect that negativity because it's not going to help you. It's not going to serve you. It's not going to do any good. And try to shift your perspective a little bit, if that makes sense. Okay, last question. The last question is, what was a deciding moment for you to decide to pursue acting, and what was it like for you at high school? Did you always know what you wanted to be? Well, so when I applied for college, I applied for 2 majors, music composition and acting, in musical theater, but mostly acting. And so I was kind of like, I'm going to let fate decide for me. But with that in mind, I really put myself out there. I didn't just like kind of half-heartedly do it. I was like, I'm going to audition for a ton of schools. I'm going to apply to a bunch of music programs. I'm going to really put in the work. And then the path will open itself up to me. And it did. I got accepted to a couple music composition programs and a couple vocal performance programs. And I got accepted to several acting programs. So but the acting programs were significantly higher level than the music programs. So I was like, I'm going to do that then. So that's what kind of opened up that path for me. I did always want to be a performer, but that's not the only thing I ever wanted to be. I really like writing. I really like learning and studying and kind of academics. I oddly really liked physics for a while. Don't ask me why. Don't know. I like a lot of things, but I distinctly remember when I was like 3 or 4 years old, I was sitting in the car listening to Phantom of the Opera with my parents because my name's Christine, and so they introduced it to me really young, and I just remember being really little trying to sing all those high notes in the car, and every time that Raul would say, Christine, Angel, right before the title song, I'd be like, that's me! Oh my gosh, whoa! And I would just obsess over it since a very, very, very young age. I was like, this is so cool. That's my name. That's me. Whoa! So since a very young age, I've had a really big love of music and theater and performance and art and all of that stuff. So I wanted to pursue it for a long time. I didn't know if I would do it for sure when I was in high school, but I did do theater all throughout high school. But, you know, I know this isn't the question, but I always want to remind people when they're like, oh my gosh, I never get the leads in high school. Why? I never got leads in high school. I was in the ensemble all the time. The leads I got were in a couple of acting shows, and they were kind of minor leads. Like, you know, like the second featured female role in like one or two plays. And then in one musical. My second semester senior year, I got Belle in Beauty and the Beast. But up until then, I was in the chorus for everything, all the time. So I'm just like, that's not a testament to success. And thankfully, I didn't let that hold me back in high school. I was like, cool, I'm going to be in the ensemble of this. It's going to be super fun. And I just put myself into it without stressing about, well, why aren't I the lead? And I think that was really helpful because it's helped my perspective as I've moved on to professional theater. But it wasn't like from the time I was 12, I was like, I'm going to be on Broadway. That's not really how it worked. Or for me. But I had an interest in it that continued for a long time. And then when those were the programs I got into, I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I ended up going to Wesleyan, and I'm really glad I did, and I'm obviously still doing it many years later since I graduated college. So, but it wasn't like a crystal clear path to me. There were indeed moments where I was like, maybe I should do something else. Maybe there's another path for me. Not because I was discouraged, but just because I had a lot of interests. And that shows in my life today because I teach a ton. I mean, that's what I do most days for most of the day is teach. And I love teaching, I love music, I love singing. That's not even what I majored in, but those reflect my other interests. I read all the time, I love studying, I love learning. I mean, there's lots of other interests that I have, and they reflect in the rest of my life. So, yeah. Anywho, so I think that's the rest of the questions. Thanks so much for sending them in. Those were all really good questions. I love doing these because, you know, sometimes there are questions that are just so complex that I want to be able to ramble on about them for like 5 minutes at a time, but it makes me feel like I can give a more cohesive answer without feeling like I'm just talking in circles, even though I'm just verbally talking in circles. Anyways, so thanks for sending them in. Maybe I'll do another one of these soon. So let me know if you like it, and I hope you learned something fun. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.